No one in the Empire had ever heard the arena this quiet. Not during executions. Not during planetary verdicts. Not even when fleets were sentenced to extinction. But today, 12 billion beings across the galaxy watched without breathing. At the center of the obsidian chamber, restrained by chains thicker than orbital anchor cables, knelt the most feared creature ever captured. Vakiros, the world breaker. His wings were torn and pinned to the floor by gravitic pylons. Scars cut across blackened scales the size of battle shields. One horn was cracked from the last warship that tried to ram him mid-flight. He had incinerated fleets, collapsed moons, ended wars by himself. And still, his eyes burned like twin suns. Above him, floating platforms held the Imperial Council. Gold and silver robes. Cold faces. Calculated cruelty. The High Chancellor stepped forward. Today, his voice echoed across every transmission node in the galaxy. We prove that even gods can be broken. A containment pod descended slowly from the ceiling. Small. Transparent. Inside it, a human infant. Barely weeks old. Soft brown hair. Tiny clenched fists. Eyes squeezed shut from crying too hard. The sound echoed in the massive chamber. Small. Fragile. Completely defenseless. A murmur rippled through alien spectators. Humans are weak. Emotionally unstable. They bond too easily. The Chancellor raised one clawed hand. We were told this species forms attachments quickly. He turned toward the dragon. Let us test that theory. The pod lowered. Closer. Closer. Until it hovered just a few meters from Vakiro's massive head. The infant's crying filled the silence. The dragon did not move. His nostrils flared once. Slow inhale. The smell of milk. Warmth. Life. The containment pod opened with a soft hiss. The baby rolled gently onto the cold arena floor. The crying stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. Every recording drone zoomed in. The baby blinked. And looked up. Directly into the eyes of a creature who had once turned an entire invasion fleet into molten debris. The dragon lowered his head. The chains groaned as he shifted forward. Gasps erupted across 1,000 systems. His jaws parted. Heat shimmered in the air around his teeth. A faint ember glow pulsed deep in his throat. This was the moment. The demonstration. The breaking of a god. The baby moved. Not away. Forward. Tiny fingers stretching upward. And then, he grabbed the dragon's cracked horn. The entire galaxy froze. No fire came. No roar. No snap of bone. Vakiro's ember glow faded. His massive eye narrowed, not in rage. In focus. The baby made a soft, curious sound. Almost a laugh. The dragon exhaled slowly. Warm air, not flame, washed over the infant like a protective blanket. Then something impossible happened. Vakiro shifted his massive body. Ignoring the chains digging into his wings. Ignoring the gravitational restraints screaming warning signals. He curled one enormous wing around the human child. Shielding him. Protecting him. The arena trembled, not from violence. But from the sound that came next. A low rumble. Ancient. Resonant. The translators hesitated. Then activated. One word echoed through the chamber. Through the Empire. Through every military command center that had once celebrated his capture. Mine. The High Chancellor stepped back. Impossible. The dragon lifted his head slowly. Not in defiance. Not in rage. But in possession. The chains began to strain. Microfractures spread along their surfaces. Vakiro's eyes no longer burned at the Empire. They scanned the chamber. Every guard. Every weapon. Every exit. The message was clear. This was no longer an execution. It was a claim. The deadliest dragon in existence had just chosen something. And for the first time in Imperial history, the Empire was not in control of him. The baby yawned. Curled against scales forged in war. And fell asleep. Fade to black. The Empire did not panic. Empires do not panic. They calculate. They analyze. They contain. But for the first time in recorded history, they did not know what they were looking at. The arena remained sealed. Military containment grids powered to maximum. Orbital cannons adjusted targeting solutions. And at the center of it all, the galaxy's most dangerous predator sat motionless. Curled protectively around a human infant. The High Chancellor's voice cut through emergency channels. Scan the child. Drones descended instantly. Quantum imaging. neural mapping, genetic analysis. The results appeared on every strategic display in the chamber. Human, male, healthy, no detectable augmentations, no psionic markers, no biological anomalies. The chief bioscientist swallowed. He is ordinary. The word felt dangerous. Ordinary beings did not calm apex predators. Ordinary beings were not shielded by something that once burned fleets for sport. The infant stirred. Tiny fingers pressing against scaled armor as if testing texture. Vaqueros did not react violently. He adjusted. Carefully. The movement was slow, measured, controlled. As if afraid of hurting something fragile. A ripple of unease spread through the council. He should fear it, one advisor whispered. All prey fears Vaqueros. But the child showed no elevated stress response. No rapid heartbeat. No cortisol spike. Instead, he babbled. Soft, curious sounds. The dragon lowered his massive head closer. One golden eye the size of a transport shuttle studied the infant. The baby reached up again. This time grabbing a scale ridge near the dragon's jaw. And smiled. A visible, unmistakable smile. Across the chamber, predictive combat algorithms began recalculating risk assessments. Threat index, rising. The chief war strategist leaned forward. This is imprinting behavior. The word sent a chill through military command. Dragons were solitary apex entities. They did not imprint. They dominated. But what unfolded in that arena resembled something older than domination. The baby made a soft sound, half giggle, half hiccup. Vaqueros responded with a low rumble. Not a roar. A vibration. Low frequency. Measured. The audio analysts froze. That tone, it's not aggression. It's modulation. Like a lullaby. Silence crushed the chamber. The High Chancellor's claws tightened around the railing. This is a display. A psychological tactic. But even he did not sound convinced. A containment officer stepped forward. We should remove the child immediately. The order was approved. 2 armored guards advanced cautiously toward the dragon. Weapons active. Non-lethal suppression beams calibrated. Vaquero's eye shifted. Slowly. Tracking them. The guard stopped 3 meters away. The baby noticed movement. He turned his head toward the approaching figures. And frowned. A small sound escaped him. Not fear. Displeasure. The dragon reacted instantly. His wing tightened around the child. Not aggressively. Protectively. The arena's gravity grid flickered. Warning alarms pulsed. Energy spikes registered across every monitoring system. His drawing power, an engineer shouted. From where? Someone demanded. No external source detected. The guards took one cautious step closer. The baby's lower lip trembled. A soft cry began forming. That was the moment everything changed. The dragon stood. Not violently. Not explosively. He simply rose. And the chains. Chains forged from neutron-forged alloy. Cracked. Not shattered. Cracked. Hairline fractures spreading like spider webs across metal designed to restrain gods. The guards froze. Weapons hummed uselessly. Targeting systems flickered and died. Across the arena, every offensive system short-circuited simultaneously. No explosion. No fire. Just silence. Vaqueros did not roar. He did not breathe flame. He lowered his head until it hovered above the guards. Close enough for them to feel the heat of his breath. And the translators activated again. Unbidden. Automatic. The dragon's voice filled the chamber. Deep. Ancient. Absolute. Step back. The words were not shouted. They did not need to be. The guards retreated. Slowly. Carefully. The baby's crying stopped the instant they moved away. He turned, pressing his tiny hand against the dragon's scale again. Content. The dragon settled back down. Chains groaning but not yet broken. The High Chancellor stared at the display screens. This was supposed to demonstrate control. Instead, the galaxy had just witnessed something far more dangerous. The deadliest creature in existence had not been broken. He had chosen. And for reasons the Empire could not explain. The human child was at the center of it. The chief strategist whispered what none of them wanted to say. He is no longer our prisoner. On the arena floor, Vaqueros wrapped his wing tighter around the infant. Watching. Waiting. Daring anyone to try again. Fade to black. The arena remained sealed for 6 hours. No one entered. No one approached. But no one left either. Because the galaxy was still watching. The Empire could not cut the broadcast. Not after declaring this a demonstration of dominance. And now, dominance had changed hands. At the center of the shattered restraint circle, Vakiros sat upright. The cracks in his chains had widened. Microfractures crawled across their surfaces like spreading frost. Energy pylons flickered under strain. Yet he did not move to escape. He remained, curled protectively around the human child. The infant, now cleaned and wrapped in a thermal field by remote drones, slept peacefully against black, battle-scarred scales. Every military analyst in the Empire repeated the same conclusion. He is choosing not to attack. That was more terrifying than rage. High Chancellor Velka stood rigid above the arena floor. Prepare removal protocol Gamma 7. A murmur swept across the council platform. Gamma 7 was not a retrieval protocol. It was a planetary neutralization protocol. If we cannot control the dragon, Velka continued, we remove the variable. Every eye shifted to the sleeping infant. Strategic calculations scrolled across displays. Projected casualties, catastrophic. Projected dragon retaliation, incalculable. But fear makes empires irrational. Orbital cannons adjusted position. Deep space fleet formations aligned. Power signatures built in silence. On the arena floor, Vakiro's eye opened. Slowly. The temperature in the chamber rose by 3 degrees. No flame. No smoke. Just pressure. The baby stirred. Tiny fingers tightening in sleep against a scale ridge. A small sigh escaped him. Vakiros lowered his massive head slightly. Protective. Watching. Above, the final authorization code was spoken. Gamma 7 authorized. The orbital cannons began charging. That was when the dragon moved. Not explosively. Not violently. He simply stood. And the remaining chains shattered. Not snapped. Disintegrated. Metal reduced to dust mid-air as if reality itself rejected their purpose. Gravitic pylons imploded under reverse pressure. Energy fields collapsed inward instead of outward. Across orbit, targeting systems failed simultaneously. Fleet command consoles flickered black. Weapon interfaces froze. Every military system connected to the arena shut down. Instantly, the chamber lights dimmed. Emergency backups tried to activate. And failed. Darkness swallowed the arena. Except for 2 burning golden eyes. A deep resonance rolled outward from the dragon. Not sound. Not exactly. A frequency. Low. Ancient. Every being present felt it in their bones. The translators activated again. This time without request. Harm him. The voice did not echo. It pressed. Through walls. Through hull plating. Through orbiting fleets. And your empire ends. No shouting. No dramatic emphasis. Just certainty. Across space, engineers screamed into dead comm systems. We've lost weapon control. Fleet thrusters offline. Navigation grids frozen. On the council platform, Velka staggered backward. Restore systems. But nothing responded. Because this was not an attack. It was a demonstration. Vakiros flexed one wing. The air rippled. Above the arena, the massive reinforced ceiling cracked. Through it, the night sky became visible. Stars shimmered beyond fractured metal. The dragon could leave. He could ascend. He could burn the world that dared threaten what he claimed. Instead, he did something far more devastating. He lowered his head again. Curled his body around the child. And waited. The message was clear. He was not attacking. He was guarding. Across the galaxy, political channels erupted. He just neutralized an empire's military. Without firing. He disabled orbital fleets remotely. How? No answer came. Because none of their models accounted for this. The child woke. Blinking up at a world suddenly dark and silent. He made a soft sound. Confused. Vakiros adjusted immediately. Lowering his massive wing to shield the infant from falling debris. One enormous claw gently cleared fractured metal from the ground. Careful. Precise. The Empire's greatest weapon. Handling rubble so it would not startle a baby. High Chancellor Velka stared down at the scene below. For the first time in his reign, he understood fear. This was no longer a captured monster. This was a guardian with nothing left to lose. And the Empire had just threatened what he protected. The dragon's eye shifted upward. Locking directly onto Velka. No flame ignited. But the meaning was unmistakable. Try again. The orbital fleet remained frozen. Weapons inert. Engines dead. An entire military power held in silent suspension. Not destroyed. Spared. Because the dragon chose restraint. The infant yawned. Rested his cheek against warm scales. And fell back asleep. The galaxy understood something in that moment. The deadliest being in existence was no longer a weapon. He was a father. Fade to black. 5 years later. No one called Vaqueros a prisoner anymore. They called him a boundary. The Empire never publicly admitted what happened in the arena. They classified it. Buried the footage. Rewrote the narrative. But across trade networks, in whispered diplomatic backchannels, and in military academies that trained future warlords, one truth spread faster than propaganda could suppress it. The dragon had chosen the human. And the Empire had blinked first. The world once used as a demonstration chamber was no longer a military fortress. It was a neutral zone. No warships within 3 million kilometers. No orbital weapons. No unauthorized fleets. Not because treaties demanded it. Because Vaqueros did. And no one wanted to test that line again. At the center of that world now stood a structure of black stone and silver alloy, half imperial architecture, half something older. Inside it, a boy stood barefoot on polished obsidian floors. His name was Iron. Dark hair. Steady eyes. Human. 5 years old. And entirely unafraid of the titan resting behind him. Vaqueros lay coiled in the open courtyard beyond the structure's massive archways. His wings stretched wide in the sunlight, scales gleaming like forged night. He no longer wore chains. He wore choice. Iron stepped forward, holding a small data slate almost too large for his hands. "You're wrong," he said calmly. Across the courtyard, a delegation of alien envoys stiffened. Their fleet waited in orbit, at a respectful distance. "We brought no weapons," the lead envoy insisted. Iron tilted his head slightly. "You brought cloaked escorts." The envoy froze. Behind Iron, one golden eye opened. Slowly. The air pressure shifted. Orbiting vessels reported mild gravitational distortion. No weapons activated. None needed to be. The envoy swallowed. "They are precautionary." Iron's voice remained steady. "So is he." Vaqueros did not move. He didn't need to. The escorts powered down their cloaking fields. Moments later, they retreated beyond the 3 million kilometer boundary. The boy nodded once. "Now we can talk." Across the galaxy, piracy declined near trade routes that passed through the neutral zone. Not because patrols increased. Because pirate fleets that entered the boundary simply disappeared. No wreckage. No distress calls. No debris fields. Just absence. And then, hours later, their ships would reappear outside the boundary. Weapons permanently offline. Navigation systems wiped. Every illegal cargo manifest broadcast publicly to their enemies. No cities burned. No lives taken. Just consequences. Military analysts called it strategic paralysis. Politicians called it impossible. The public called it a miracle. Iron grew quickly. At 7, he could read 16 galactic dialects. At 8, he negotiated trade accords that veteran diplomats struggled to draft. At 9, he stood before a war council and asked a question no one else dared. "Why do you need to win?" Silence had followed. Vaqueros had remained coiled behind him. Not looming. Not threatening. Present. The dynamic confused observers. The dragon was powerful enough to conquer sectors. The boy was physically fragile compared to most species in the council chamber. Yet when Iron spoke, Vaqueros listened. Truly listened. When the dragon shifted, it was because the boy asked. When the dragon moved, it was because the boy approved. The most terrifying predator in known space had not been tamed. He had aligned. One evening, as twin suns dipped below the horizon, Iron sat against the massive curve of scaled armor. "You could leave," the boy said quietly. "You broke the chains years ago." Vaqueros' eye opened halfway. A deep rumble vibrated through the ground. Not anger. Not dominance. Contentment. The translators, long since permanently integrated into the neutral zone, activated softly. "I remain." Iron traced a finger along a scar near the dragon's wing joint. "They fear you." "They should," Vaqueros replied. A pause. Then, "They do not understand you." The dragon's eye narrowed slightly. "And you do." Iron leaned back against warm scales. "You didn't choose me because I was strong." The night wind moved through the courtyard. You chose me because I wasn't afraid. Silence stretched between them. Then, the faintest hint of amusement vibrated in the dragon's chest. Correct. In orbit, long-range sensors detected movement. An unidentified fleet approaching the boundary. Military-grade signatures. No diplomatic requests filed. No trade codes transmitted. Arn stood slowly. Valkyro's wings shifted once. The ground trembled, not violently, but with readiness. Arn looked toward the sky. They're testing. The dragon's eyes ignited faintly. Yes. Arn's expression did not change. Don't burn them. The glow dimmed. A single nod of massive scaled head. Above, the approaching fleet's engines flickered. Navigation systems scrambled. Weapons powered down involuntarily. Command signals looped back on themselves. Within minutes, the fleet drifted, harmless and blind, just outside the boundary line. Arn folded his arms. They'll leave. They did. And across the galaxy, the story spread again. The dragon does not strike first. But the line does not move. That night, in military academies and imperial councils alike, one conclusion crystallized. The galaxy no longer feared a captured beast. It feared a bond. Because the deadliest dragon in existence had not just found something to protect. He had found someone to stand beside. And that made him far more dangerous. Fade to black. The galactic convergence had not convened in 50 years. Empires rose and fell without requiring it. Wars were fought. Borders redrawn. Species discovered. But the convergence was only called for one reason. When the balance of power shifted. This time, it shifted around a human child and a dragon. The chamber was vast, suspended in open orbit above the neutral zone. Transparent walls revealed distant stars and the silent silhouette of Valkyros coiled in space beyond the station. He was not inside. He did not need to be. His presence was visible from every seat. Arn stood alone at the center platform. 12 years old now. Calm. Hands clasped behind his back. No armor. No guards. Across from him sat representatives of every major power in the galaxy. The High Chancellor of the Empire, older now, quieter, leaned forward. We request clarity, he said carefully. Why did the dragon choose you? No accusation. No arrogance. Just the truth they had waited years to ask. Arn did not answer immediately. He glanced outward, toward the stars. Toward the shape that blocked constellations. Then he spoke. You offered me to prove dominance. The chamber remained silent. You thought fear would break him. A faint ripple of discomfort passed through the delegates. But you misunderstand something fundamental about both of us. He lifted his gaze. When I was placed in that arena, I wasn't afraid. Murmurs flickered through the chamber. That creature had every reason to hate you. To hate everything. He gestured outward. But when he looked at me, Arn's voice softened slightly. I didn't see a monster. Across space, Valkyros shifted. Subtle. Massive wings adjusting against the vacuum. The station trembled almost imperceptibly. I saw something alone. Silence deepened. The High Chancellor's claws tightened against the railing. And that is enough, he asked. Arn shook his head gently. No. He turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. It was choice. You chained him. Controlled him. Used him. He had power without freedom. Arn's voice remained steady. I had nothing. The contrast hung in the air. He chose not to kill me. And I chose not to fear him. Outside the chamber, Valkyro's eyes ignited faintly, visible even through reinforced orbital glass. One delegate from a militarized sector leaned forward. If he is loyal to you, then why have you not expanded your influence? Why not dominate trade routes? Why not claim territory? Arn's expression didn't change. Because power without restraint becomes the thing you fear. The words echoed softly. You fear the dragon because he can end you. You fear humans because we adapt. He took a slow breath. But neither of us wants to rule you. A pause. We want to be left alone. A younger delegate, barely past cadet rank, spoke without permission. If you can disable fleets without firing. He hesitated. Why not conquer the galaxy? Arn smiled faintly. Not smug. Not amused. Just patient. Because conquest is fragile. Control built on fear requires constant reinforcement. He looked directly at the cadet. Respect lasts longer. The chamber fell silent again. Outside, Vakiros unfolded one wing. Stars vanished behind scaled shadow. The message was unmistakable. He could end this station. This council. This era. And yet, he remained still. Ahn continued. You call him the deadliest dragon in existence. He glanced back toward the window. You're wrong. Several delegates stiffened. He is the most restrained. A long silence followed. The High Chancellor finally lowered his gaze. So what changes now? Ahn's answer was simple. Nothing. The word rippled through the chamber. We will not expand. We will not demand tribute. We will not intervene in your wars. His eyes hardened slightly. But if you cross the boundary again. The faintest heat shimmer flickered across the station hull. Vakiro's gaze sharpened. You will not get a second warning. No threat. Just fact. The convergence ended without a vote. Because none was needed. The records were updated that day. Humanity, apex bonding species. Vakiros, sovereign guardian class entity. But privately, across military archives and political briefings, a different line was added. They tried to prove dominance by offering a child to a monster. They accidentally created a partnership the galaxy cannot challenge. As the station cleared orbit, Ahn stood alone at the viewing deck. Moments later, a shadow eclipsed the stars. Vakiros hovered outside the glass. Massive. Silent. Ahn placed a hand against the reinforced barrier. On the other side, a claw larger than the chamber itself mirrored the gesture. No chains. No commands. Just choice. The dragon's voice vibrated softly through the translator grid. Mine. Ahn smiled. Always. Fade to black.